Welcome to the Circuit of Success Podcast.
The Circuit of Success Podcast.
With your host, Brett
Gilliland. Brett Gilliland, Visionary Wealth Advisory.
The Circuit of Success Podcast. Let's start the show.
Welcome to the Circuit of Success. I am your host, Brett Gilliland. Today I've got Gary Chupik with me. Gary, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great. Happy to be with you.
Awesome. Thanks for having me. How's everything going in Seattle, Washington right now?
Well, believe it or not, it's sunny, so it's a pretty special day here in the Pacific Northwest.
I can't remember who it was. A buddy of mine was just there for like a week and a half for business, and he said he absolutely loved it. Had a great time. He said that he got lucky with the weather, I guess. It was perfect, and so he was talking up Seattle, Washington, which is cool.
Yeah, it's a great place. I mean, from May till October, you just can't find a nicer place. Every day is 82, no wind, no bugs. So it's absolutely gorgeous. There's a million things to do. There's mountains on all four sides, so you can just look any direction and see mountains. So it's absolutely beautiful. However, when that late October hits, it is rain all the way till May.
Oh, that's got to be tough. So you just get in an airplane and travel somewhere else, right?
I try to fit all my traveling in January and February if I can.
Well, you are an international speaker, a writer, a professional member of the Association of Applied Sports Psychology, a certified professional leadership coach through the ICF, an ordained minister of 27 years and chaplain of the Seattle Thunderbirds for the last 7 years. Tons of business owners, lots of athletes you've worked with over the years. But what I always like to start with, Gary, is what has helped make you the man you are today?
Well, it's certainly a very incredible wife. My wife is a very unique, special person. So she is on the autism spectrum. And so that provides a lot of different challenges for our marriage and for our life. But, there's a lot of good things about that too. And so to focus on the positive things and to realize how important that she is to both me and my business is really important. So yeah, she's a very special person and she makes all things go.
That's awesome. And how old were you guys when you met?
Well, pretty early. We were dating at about 19, and we got married just when we turned 22. So I was a Regina, Saskatchewan, Canadian prairie boy, and she's from Seattle, so she went to school in Canada. And so I met her there, and then it was like, where should we live? It's like middle of nowhere, Canada or Seattle. And so Seattle pretty easily won up.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So one of the things that I like to chat with people is, obviously this is called the Circuit of Success, but I think we can learn a lot from the Circuit of Failures as well, right? So, you're working with like 50% of your business is, I think, business owners, 50% are athletes. What are some of the things that can correlate between sports and business on how we deal with failures? And doesn't mean, end of the world failures, but just little failures that can come along throughout our days. How do we deal with those? And what are the things that you recommend for people to get better?
Yeah, it's really remarkable. Like I'm sure you're aware of a lot of the statistics around what percentage of business owners played high school or college athletics. And it's like 80-some%. Like it's remarkable how many successful, or just people in business and successful people in business played sports at some level. And so there's something about sports that teaches us about resilience. And if you play sports, you're going to lose. If you play sports, you're going to get injured. If you play sports, you're going to have moments where you're just completely flustered and just discouraged with your performance. And most likely you are a part of a team at some level, or you receive coaching at some level. And so I think the ability just to be able to adapt to losses and figure out okay, how do I need to change? What do I need to do to grow? What do I need to accept and not accept about myself and my performance? And I think resilience is probably the greatest attribute I know for people in business and people in sports, but we learn that in the sports world. In fact, Brett, I can't think of anything in life, and being a man of faith, it's important to me in my life, but I can't think of really anything that prepares people better for life and leadership than sports.
I would not disagree with that. And I was writing a question down here when you were saying that. So talk about your faith for a minute. How does that play out? Obviously in your personal life, your faith's incredibly important, but how does it play out for you in your professional life?
Well, it's pretty significant, actually. I have a very unique view of humanity, probably very different than what most people have heard. But for me personally, the quadratic view of a person is what I sort of subscribe to. So your body, mind, soul, and spirit. And so to me, if you're not tapped into that spiritual side, then what you're doing is kind of like being an athlete with 3 limbs being sent out on the field. If you're not really incorporating that 4th limb, I think you're really missing out on something. And so there's a lot of people that have different views of spirituality. There's a lot of people who don't really adhere to a lot of spiritual, I think, have a really deep spiritual grounding. However, I think everybody asks themselves the existential question, why am I here? And whether that's a spiritual question or an existential question, it really doesn't matter. The question is why are you here? And what's your purpose? Like, why are you here? What's your mission? And if we can help athletes figure out their why, I think it's a huge source of performance, no matter what sport is played or whether you're in sports or in business. Because if you can figure out what your purpose is and you can figure out why you're here, it's such a huge advantage because it allows you to ride those negative waves of performance or negative seasons of your life where you just kind of go, man, I'm just feeling so lost or so discouraged or so confused. But having that grounding of faith is really, really powerful no matter what stage of life that you're in.
Yeah. And so talk about those: body, mind, soul, and spirituality. I think those were the 4 you mentioned, right? So
Correct.
Talk, if you can, go through those. Body, what do you mean by that? Obviously, I understand what you're saying, but like walk us through your perception of that.
Yeah. So taking care of yourself and your body is crucial. For example, you can't really override your physical attributes in many ways. Like you can to some degree, but your physical attributes are what they are. And so our ability to take care of ourselves is crucial. So I adhere to something or teach something called the SFO principle, which is self for others. So take care of yourself so well physically so that you can really love and care for others well. But I don't know about you, but if I get 2 hours sleep in a night, I'm not very loving, kind, patient, or emotionally regulated. So taking care of my body puts me in the best position to succeed in every other area of my life. So it's one of the foundations of my practice is saying, listen, you can't control an outcome. You just can't do it. You can throw the best pitch in the entire world, but it still get hit for a home run. So taking care of yourself physically puts you in the best position to succeed on multiple levels. So that physical part, it's really hard to override that. And even if you try, and you can to some degree, but if you do it for too long and too hard, then your body starts to revolt against your mind. And so as I've gotten older, I've learned to realize that, you know what, my body's trying to tell me something. Instead of me ignoring my body, which I did a lot when I was younger, and that gets you to some degree, does get you far. But eventually, as you get older, you have to be able to adapt to your body. So in other words, think of your knee or your shoulder or a muscle literally trying to talk to you. And you can ignore it for a while, but eventually it's going to sort of have its say. So the body is as us taking care of our body as well as possible. Then
What's that look like? Sorry to interrupt real quick before we go on to the next one. So what's that look like for you? Like what are those habits that are guiding you every single day?
Well, I'm up at 3:45 a.m. every morning, and then I have a quiet time for about 40 minutes. So whether it's prayer and meditation, scripture reading for me, or just spending time meditating, and then I'm at the gym by about 4:45, and then I put in 2 hours of work at the gym, and then I get home at around 7 and connect with my wife. We call it launching. So we want to launch every day together in the best way possible. And then it's nutrition, hydration, movement, and sleep are the big 4. So it's having those in place so that I'm taking care of my body and always putting myself in the best position to succeed. So, and then on weekends, I try to completely rest. I try to do as little as possible. It's not laying around on the sofa, but it really is called active rest, which is making sure that I'm walking or going on hikes like I did yesterday that were too ambitious for me, but I did it anyway. So yeah, it's really making the physical part of my life a priority, because if that's not right, it is really a constant uphill battle.
Yeah. 3:45 or you say 3 or 3:45?
3:45.
It's impressive. I'm not that guy. I've tried to build that habit, and I end up getting mad.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, I have to go to bed at 9, though, right? Yeah. So as long as I'm getting close to 7 hours sleep, I'm pretty good.
Yeah, that's great. So now on to the mind. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, the mind is super fascinating. Like the brain is like this 2.5-pound mass in our skull, but your mind is something very different. And so a lot of the work that I do with the mind is just convincing people and actually convincing myself as well that there's a lot more broad range of thoughts and ideas and behaviors that I can control if things happen in my mind first. So in my view, things happen twice, first in your mind and then in real life. And I think it's one of the reasons why a lot of people have a very difficult time knowing what they want, just not being able to do it. But part of it is that we haven't really spent enough time really seeing it in our mind's eye. So if we work long and hard enough of it, and that's what sort of mental imagery and visualization is all about. But if we just at least give ourselves the chance to see ourselves doing those things in our mind's eye enough times, so if we're getting enough reps, then actually doing it in real life is not as big of a leap. So getting our mind right is pretty important, and it gives us options on how we want to handle situations. And so, yeah, having a healthy mindset is really important. And I think a lot of mental health falls short here because a lot of mental health is about crisis and coping, but mental performance and mental strength is about thriving and transcendence. It's like, what can I do to put myself in the best position to succeed in terms of my mindset? And that takes some work. Like having a resilient mind is not really an exercise that you can do. It's just a series of exercises and things and tools in your toolbox so that you can eventually end up resilient. So taking care of your mind, yeah, it's probably the thing that we do the least. We often train our bodies, we often train our craft, but we don't train our mind often enough. So I like to say it this way with a lot of athletes and teams that I work with, the training room is that crisis and coping, but mental performance is like being in the gym and hearing the clank of the dumbbells on the hitting the bottom of the floor. So it's like, yeah, I really want to help people become stronger so that they can accomplish whatever it is that they intend to do with their life.
Yeah. So on that mind side, again, what are some things, 2, 3, 4 things that you do or you'd recommend even to your clients that you'd recommend the people listening to this? What do they do to help with that mindset?
Yeah, well, it's important to remember that your thoughts are either helping you or they're hurting you. And sometimes those thoughts are really familiar, so we tolerate them. But what if we could judge the quality of our thoughts, whether they're helping us or they're hurting us? And so one of the things I like to think about is like, how productive is this thought for me? Because if it's not producing anything positive or good for me, and then why am I continuing to have this thought? It's not very helpful to me. So one of the things that I like to do every single day is something I call to win the day. And it's a way for me to control my thoughts about the day. So win the day or WTD as I like to call it, it's identifying those 5 or 7, and yes, I picked those numbers intentionally, but 5 or 7 things that we can do every day that put us in the best position to succeed. So think of your brain like a computer that you're booting up every single day, and you get to load the programs. Well, one of the programs that I like to load, and it's one of my win the days, is I want to make sure that I'm making certain declarations, or I want to make sure that I'm quoting my personal philosophy. And you would think that that would get old, but it really doesn't, because it's my true north star for the rest of the day. So if I'm being who I've been created to be, and if I'm in touch with my identity and who I am, I can quote this personal philosophy every single day. And mine is every day is a new day to challenge and inspire myself and others. So it starts with me, and no matter what I'm going through in my life, whether it's difficult or challenging, or maybe there's some external stimuli that's providing some challenge for me, I still know that every day is a new day to challenge and inspire myself, even in the midst of difficult circumstances. So getting my mind right by doing my win the days, and one of my win the days is my declarations and my personal philosophy, is just crucial to me. It just grounds me for every single day.
Yeah. It's funny. I mean, I've been doing that for years of writing stuff down. It's in the beginning of my journal and I read it, and it's, early on it was every day, 2 or 3 times a day. And now it's, I read it probably 3 or 4 times a week. Could get back to doing it every day, but it works, right? It works so well. So I'm glad to hear you say that. So for those listening, write down some of the things of who you are, right? I am a good husband. I am a good father. I am a good leader, right? You can, however in depth you want to take it. But it's funny, you start to tell yourself that stuff over and over and over, and that's what you work through, right? And so to your win the day, I talk about my focus 90. I spend the first 90 minutes of every day either, if it's summertime, it's different. I'll do it at home. But if it's school, get the kids to school, then it's the first 90 days or 90 minutes in the office. But it's spending 90 minutes on the things that I need to do to win the day. Because here's what happens, right? And I'm sure you'd agree with this. If I come in and only worry about everybody else's stuff, I'm going to go home at 5 o'clock tonight and be like, well, I don't even know what I got done today, right? It was a busy day, but we didn't get the purposeful stuff done. And so that's what I want to focus on. Because if I can win the day and win more days, I'm going to win weeks, I'm going to win months, I'm going to win quarters, I'm going to win years, I'm going to win decades, right? And that's the game plan right there that I assume that's what you're talking about as well, right?
I think so. Yeah, it's actually kind of interesting too. I've been reading a little bit about Steve Jobs and his conversations about signal to noise ratio. And so the signal is the very thing that you need to be doing. Like that's the most important stuff. The noise or the distortion, that's like so much a big part of our day. And so it's like, well, how do I reduce the signal to noise ratio? And how can I make sure that when it comes to the things that really move the needle in my personal life or in my business, that I'm spending the majority of my time doing those things. On a maybe more conversational level, I like to think of it this way. There's a lot of things that you want, and there's a lot of things that you really want. But they're two totally different things. Like if people were to ask me, Gary, what do you want? Like I would be like, well, I'd really love to be smoking meat on my smoker on a Saturday afternoon, having a beer or whatever, and just enjoying watching college football. Like that's what I want. However, what I really want is to have a generational impact in the lives of people that I care about. And so it's like, well, having a generation, I'd have to live a little bit differently if I really pursued what I really wanted. And so if I could switch the time around of how I spend my time to spending 80% of the time going after what I really want, which is to have that generational impact, then that's really going to dramatically change my behaviors and what I do with my life.
Yeah, that's strong. What about the soul? So that was the third. We had body, we had mind, now soul. Talk about that.
Yeah, so the soul to me is a lot of the seat of your emotions and desires. So it's kind of like, if I'm feeling a certain way about, a situation in my life or a relationship or my job or an aspect of my job, that's my soul. My personality is my soul as well. So who I am and getting to know myself is a piece of my life that I'm constantly exploring. Jordan Peterson says it well. So many other people say it well, that the greatest indicator of future success is abilities person to become self-aware. So self-awareness is the greatest indicator for business and personal success that there is. And I would have to agree wholeheartedly. So I don't think you ever stop really knowing yourself and knowing your identity. And so I like to take lots of personality tests, and I'm constantly like trying to explore who I am and notice the movements inside of my own soul. It's kind of like wind blowing in the trees. It's like, oh, what am I noticing about myself? What am I noticing about my desires? What am I noticing about a situation or maybe a harsh word that was said to me? Like, what am I noticing about myself in all those situations? And so just paying attention to your soul is really valuable.
Yeah, I think too, what comes to my mind there is it's the treadmill of life. We can get going, we get busy, you go to kid events, you come home, you eat, you go to bed, you get up, you do it all over again, right? And I don't say that in a negative way. I love doing that. There's nothing more I love than watching my kids play sports. It's an absolute blast. But it gets busy, right? And so I think the key to that is slowing down to speed up. So for me, it's finding time in my day with just me and my little black journal here of just writing things down and dreaming and strategizing. So anything like that you use to help your clients that you could help our listeners with, that it's like what I do, my process?
Yeah, I have a love-hate relationship with journaling. Like I love doing it. It's so hard for me to discipline. The great Thomas Sowell said everything in life is a trade-off. Everything is a trade-off. So what's the trade-off if I don't journal? Well, maybe it's something valuable. Like maybe I'm, reading something that I find really important, or maybe it's going for a walk, or maybe, so there's some trade-off I'm making for not journaling. However, there are many times I wish that I was. And I think it has a lot to do with the busyness of life and people's, maybe if that's the way that they connect with their soul, then I would wholeheartedly encourage them to do that. But I think the most important piece is just making time for yourself, like whether it's practicing mindfulness and gratitude or whether it's journaling, is just making space for yourself. When we live in a day and age, Brett, where people are uncomfortable in their own skin if they don't have their phone or they don't have a screen or something like that, or some type of technology. But I think one of the greatest gifts that we can give our children is being comfortable in their own skin. And so creating experiences for them. Like we used to, for our kids, we used to say, you're going to be in your room at 7 p.m. and you don't have to shut your light off until 8 or 8:30. But we used to tell our kids, you can stay up as late as you want. It's just that you can't have anything, after 8 p.m. You can have, and your light needs to be shut off. But letting people like creating a space for kids to be comfortable in their own skin and comfortable with their own thoughts about themselves and their lives, I think is such a beautiful gift to be able to give to kids.
Well, I had a business coach. This is probably in 2007 or 8. I remember him telling me, and I had basically almost a 2-year-old and a newborn at this time, and he said that you can never travel too much, right? And what he meant by that was, he said, when I travel, it expands my thinking. It makes me think bigger. It makes me dream bigger, right? And so go to inspiring places. Thoughts on travel for people, for success, for experiences with their kids. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it's incredibly valuable. Like growing up, like my youngest now is 21 and out of the house, so I'm just an empty nester. But I always felt like the most powerful thing that I could ever do is spend one-on-one time with my kids away from home.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. There's something about being away from home that is just so valuable. And I don't know about you, but I like to just travel just for the sake of driving away from my perceived problems sometimes, or getting on a jet and flying away from them. But I think making this space for that kind of reflection is really important. And, as a man of faith, I believe in Sabbath very, very deeply. And I don't care what it's from. Like, I think Sabbathing from everything is healthy, whether it's food, whether it's like even a relationship. Sometimes, like my wife and I will spend a day apart just because it's really healthy for our relationship. So she can have time for reflection and I can have time for reflection. So I just think Sabbath from everything, including work, play, relationships, our phones, it's so good to spend time away from something because it just gives you a different perception of things.
Yeah. So speaking of your phone, do you have any apps that besides like maybe the camera or your email or calendar, because those are kind of boring, but are there any apps or anything that you use for business or just life in general that you would not want me to delete from your phone?
Boy, that's such a good question. I try to spend as least time on my phone as possible. So I have no games on my phone. I have only what's necessary. Other than a calendaring link, I probably don't have a whole lot.
Good.
Yeah, I'm just not one to be glued to my phone too much.
Love that. What about AI? How do you see AI working for the business leaders that you work with and the people listening to this show? What, if anything, what are you using AI for right now, and where do you see it playing a role in the future for us?
Well, it's going to be massive for me on multiple levels. I have a very unique way of teaching mental performance, and it's very sequential. And for me, that's really important because it's like, you can have all the right ingredients. It's kind of like when you do business planning. There's a sequence to business planning. There's a sequence to which, if you want to be successful in business, you cannot put the cart before the horse. There's a sequence. And I think in the same way, that's true for mental performance. And it's like, think of like baking a cake. You could have all the right ingredients, but if you put flour on top of cocoa and put an egg on top and then throw it in the oven for 45 minutes, then take it out and put sugar on top and a few other things like baking soda, you have all the right ingredients, but you haven't sequenced it in a way to give you the intended result. And mental performance is the same way. So this is one of the ways that AI really falls short in my industry, is that it has no concept of sequence. It's just sort of regurgitating what it thinks it knows, but you're really not putting it in a way that's palpable for that particular person. So what's really interesting about AI is that AI is at a place now where it can take my voice, so it creates knowledge silos of topics. And what's fascinating about this is that the AI will literally scan every video that I've ever been on, any article that I've ever written, every video that I've ever done, and it'll scan the internet for answers of how I might answer a question. But now it's at the point where not only can it do that, but it also can put it in my tone of voice.
I'm sorry, are you using like Chat GPT for this or something different?
Well, there's a couple different programs that are out there, but I do know that it's happening so fast that you can customize AI to be your own personal mental performance coach. But that to me is too generic. Like there's a lot of, almost ChatGPT can almost do anything, but if you want it to be customized towards you particularly, you're going to have to build that silo of knowledge. And there's I'm just exploring this more and more and more, so I haven't really fully used it. But one of the things that I've been playing with is captions and the app Captions. And Captions is literally taking my voice, mimicking the tone of my voice, mimicking my my unique personality traits and how I might communicate with my tone and verbs and voice inflection. And it's actually reproducing me. So just the other day, a couple of weeks ago, in fact, I was just playing with this and I typed in a script for, it'd be maybe, 60 seconds. But me typing in my script was all that it needed. It didn't need anything else. So I uploaded a picture or a video of me, a short video. It mimicked my background. It mimicked my mannerisms. You wouldn't have really told that it wasn't me. You couldn't tell. And I couldn't tell. So right now, for me to become far more efficient on social media, I can literally type in my script. Like, for example, I have a Monday morning mindset that I send out to thousands of people for free every Monday morning that are maybe sports psychology and leadership sort of oriented. Okay. And people can go to my website, elitemindsetnation.com, sign up for the free Monday morning mindset text. And I can take that text, copy and paste it into Captions, and it'll spit out the video for me just like that. And I could do it I could do it retroactively with all the text I've ever done, but I would have a couple thousand Monday morning mindset texts that I've done over the years. And I could just start uploading texts, and it'll actually create the video for me. And then all I have to do is schedule the videos. So I could literally be a couple years in advance of sending out these text messages from Captions right now. It's really remarkable.
Nuts. Absolutely nuts. Any other thoughts on AI?
Yeah, if you're not using AI yet, boy, you're probably just missing out on stuff. Like one of the pieces of AI that I use is for podcasts, and I can listen to a podcast just lightning quick like your own, and listen to some great guests, get a summary of it, and say, wow, I really like this conversation, or I really like this episode that you had with, so-and-so. And so that's one of the ways that I'm using AI, and is just expediting my use in outrageous ways. It's really remarkable.
So if somebody wanted to listen to this podcast right here, they would take that link from YouTube or wherever they find their podcast. Tell me more about that. Where do you go with that? Because that's quick learning, right? If you got a 15-minute drive to work and you want to listen to an hour and 30-minute Joe Rogan podcast, well, it's hard to listen for an hour and 30 minutes to 2 hours, right? So how would you do that?
Yeah, so you can just literally type in or copy and paste the URL in YouTube, plug it into ChatGPT, ask you to give you can ask for a 10-minute summary, you can ask for a 2-minute summary, you can ask for a 40-minute summary. It's really remarkable. And then you can ask it to speak it instead of, read it. And then you can just listen to the transcript, whatever length that you wanted.
Incredible. It is amazing. It's absolutely amazing. What are some of the things in your job, in your world now, that you're most excited about when you think about the next, 12 to 36 months? It's like, man, you're right at this edge of this thing happening. What are some of those things?
Oh, I love that question. How wonderful. I've got way too many irons in the fire. But the biggest things I have going, and I guess this is, it's really, really big stuff. So one of them is I just finished my mental performance assessment, which I think is the best mental performance assessment on the internet. I know it's out there. I'm a research nerd. I think it's the most thorough assessment that's out there. So one will be for sports, the other one will be for business. I'm just finishing up on the business version of it. So a lot of it's similar, just kind of language has changed. But this will be able to be used on a massive scale. Like for example, if Google, I spoke at Google just about a month ago, I could take it to Google and say, why don't we just mentally assess where your team is at or where your division is at. And instead of doing it as a one-on-one interview with me, I can do your entire team in a morning, and I can get a pretty good picture of where your team is struggling in terms of your mindset. So I measure 22 different categories, and people can go to elitemindset.assessment.com right now and take the assessment. And one of the gifts that I'd love to give your listeners, Brett, is if they type in the word elite, all caps, elite, and then the number 100, they can take the assessment for free. Since it's brand new and I'm just testing it out and wanting to get some more feedback, but it's something that your listeners can take right now. So
elite100.com?
Elite 100 is the discount code. The website is elitemindset.assessment.com. elitemindset.assessment.com. And they just type in the discount area or window, they just type in Elite 100 and they can take it for free. So that's what I'm really excited about. And I guess the other really big thing I'm excited about is taking what I do professionally. So I have an elite mindset process. So it's the process that I would take elite athletes through and business people. So like I said, there's about 80% crossover, but what I plan to do is digitalize that. So Elite Mindset will then become a course, and then people can take that if I'm just a little bit too expensive for people, but they can take the course that I think will give them the same content. And then I have something called the GamePlan for Life, which is a 2-day experience that I provide for my clients. And I am going somewhere with this. So people fly from all over the country to spend 2 days with me, or they fly me out to where they are. And at the end of that 2 days, they definitely have a game plan for their life. So they'll understand their identity, their purpose, their calling, the vision that they have for their life, their personal philosophy, their current assignments, and then what does execution look like? So I do all that in those 2 days. So what I'm planning on doing is creating a community of people of high performance, or nation of high performers who will be able to either be part of a virtual community, or, and this is what I was going to say that I'm really excited about, is we're creating a mastermind of high performers in sports and business. So it'll be about sports, business, and mindset. And I'll be doing my first event in Las Vegas in the next year, which I'm really excited about. I have some great people already said yes to being the speakers, including myself. And so I'm super excited about that, of creating a community of high performers, because there's so many people in sports who are business minded. There's so many people who are business people who are sports minded. So I hope to be able to bring them all together under one roof.
That's awesome. Well, congrats, man. And I think that's what's cool, is that that's you, man. That's your passion. You lit up when I asked the question, right? Like, you're helping people. And you can see this sticker here on my microphone, the F greater than P. That's helping people achieve a future greater than their past. And that is my mission, right? And so when you hear the mission statement of helping you achieve a future greater than your past, what comes to mind for you?
Well, I think people have to be unlocked. And so sometimes it's an event, sometimes it's a relationship, sometimes it's an experience. And I don't think the experience economy is done. Like people can change, they think they can change on their own. But to be really frank, I don't know if I've ever seen anybody really change without somebody else's help. So I think while ChatGPT and other resources are really valuable, and sometimes reading a book that is kind of like you're being mentored by an author, that can be really helpful, but experiences change people. And so I hope to be able to provide that. And I think for you, it's kind of the same thing. It's like, how do we help them experience something, even if it is in a coaching relationship? But there's got to be some way to unlock people, and I think it's relational.
Yeah, amen to that. Well, Gary, this has been awesome, man, having you on the Circuit of Success. Where do our listeners find more of you?
Well, most of my clients hang out on Instagram. So on Instagram, it's Elite Mindset. I'm the guy with the blue verification dot. So Elite Mindset on Instagram, and people can just Google my name, and there's a couple things out there about that.
So Elite Mindset, I will go follow you right now. We'll stay connected. But man, Gary, thanks so much. I've got over a page of notes here. This is awesome. So thanks for your time today, and thanks for being on the Circuit of Success.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Great, insightful questions. It's been a great conversation.